I would like to talk about my New York Mets for a few minutes, and specifically Sir RADickey, who gained his 18th win of the season last year.
Last night?
Last night. Sorry, guys. I'm shot, man.
It's the ghost of Art Modell.
It's the ghost. It's like, you can't talk. I'm messing with you. All right, so last night, the Mets actually finally won another game, but, I mean, that pretty much is irrelevant at this time of the year. But RADickey gets his 18th win of the year, and the real question begins of, does he deserve to be considered as the favorite in the NL Cy Young? And now, most of you guys that listen to the show on a regular basis do know I'm not the biggest baseball guy. But what I will say is that I've watched him pitch, and that knuckleballer is just mean. He's pitching with a 2.64 ERA right now, which is pretty damn impressive.
Was that second in the NL, you said?
Let's see. ERA-wise, I see only
I think he's number one.
Is it
you got 2.58 ERA by Johnny Cueto in Cincinnati. But after that, he's number 2 in ERA. So, which is pretty good. I mean, let's see. He's number 2 in ERA. I'm gonna go through the stats, see where he's at. Now, number 2 in WHIP.
Behind Cueto as well?
He's behind Kershaw in WHIP.
Kershaw?
Yeah, and Cueto is 9th in WHIP.
Okay.
Let's see. For wins, losses, like you said, we have 18 wins for Dickey, only 4 losses. You've got Gio Gonzalez with 18 wins, 7 losses. Johnny Cueto with 17 wins, 7 losses. Then you got a couple 15s and then a bunch of 14 winners. Outside of that, then strikeouts, Dickey's got 195. He's actually tied for second with Strasburg, only trailing Clayton Kershaw. He's only given up 45 walks, which puts him right at the top, actually. Oh, you can't organize things like that. Sorry, guys. But yeah, 45 walks. I mean, he is... Wow, yeah, he's tied with like Steven Strasburg, Ian Kennedy, Chad Billingsley, a couple of bigger names in walks. And now, the interesting part though is, I mean, innings pitched to me, he's right up there too. He's only trailing by 1.2 innings behind Clayton Kershaw. So it really seems that Johnny Cueto and Clayton Kershaw are his 2 biggest competitors when it comes down to the NL Cy Young Award. So now, the only issue I have is if you give it to him, he's on one of the worst teams in baseball. So does he deserve to win a Cy Young considering the team that he's on?
Well, I think one of the good things about the Cy Young voters is that generally it is about which pitcher winds up benefiting their team the most. I do believe Felix Hernandez actually won a Cy Young a few years ago on Seattle, kind of in a similar position, one of the worst teams.
13 and 12.
Yeah. It's not just about wins and losses. Besides that, there was when Tim Lincecum won his second Cy Young, there was a lot of outcry because he only won like 13 or 14 games that year too, had close to a 500 record like that. I think Dickey definitely deserves some sort of recognition. Yes, the Cy Young Award, not just for the 18 wins, but only 4 losses on a team that over the last couple months has been terrible. They're losing everything, and still, he's only got 4 losses through the whole thing. And I do think 2 or 3 of those have come in the second half. But I mean, that record could just as easily be 5-7 in the second half as it could be 6-2, 6-3. I think is what he's at now because he had 12 at the All-Star break. Knuckleballs have always been the novelty in sports. They're the ones that, don't get as much recognition as the other pitchers. Not only did he take it and reinvent himself, but he has made a knuckleball pitcher one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. He's competing with guys like Clayton Kershaw, Johnny Cueto. Cueto's had an amazing season himself. And Cincinnati's done a really good job this year. They're a playoff team in part because of him. Gio's had a good year too. He's got 7 losses though, which is more than anyone else on the competition. And Clayton Kershaw is always one of the best pitchers in baseball. It doesn't matter what year that is. I think it will wind up being Dickey this year just because, he's a knuckleball pitcher who's wound up dominating the league. And there should be recognition for the fact that he's got an 18-4 record on one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, Eric, I'm going to give you a chance to voice your opinion as well, but he has 18 wins. The Mets as a team have 65. So he's contributed to 25% of his team's wins pretty much. So, I mean, that does speak for something, but Eric, I mean, like I said, I'm not the biggest baseball guy, so I really don't know how the voters really go about this stuff. I'm really not sure how they look at it, so I would love to hear your side of it as well. I think Mike makes some good points.
I wanted to try and argue for, say, Cueto or even Gio Gonzalez at 18-7.
Cueto, I think you'd have a case. I can give you the case on Cueto.
Yeah, but it's hard, though, because the more I'm thinking about it, the more you kind of have to give it to Dickey. And it's hard to say, but, and you're right. The knuckleball is kind of the novelty pitch. Not everyone throws it. Very few guys who throw it are any good at throwing it. But if you're a great knuckleballer, you're a great knuckleballer. Yeah. I mean, Tim Wakefield was around forever. Pitched 20 seasons, or so, pitching with the knuckleball. 18-4, even though the Mets are as bad as they are, like Dave just pointed out, 25% of their wins pretty much. Second in the NL and ERA. It's really hard not to give it to him or give him, really the top consideration. He's got to be. I mean, granted, he's going to have another 2 starts probably, maybe 3. At least 3 before the end of the season. So maybe something happens there. Maybe he blows up, in 2 of them. If not, and he pitches strong, say he ends 20-5, say he pitches 3 more starts, goes 2-1, 20-5, second best ERA in the NL. Even though it's on a losing club, you'd be hard-pressed not to give it to him. I think he's got to be the favorite right now, and probably by a pretty decent margin.
The scary thing is how you mentioned the fact he might only start about 2 or 3 more times, goes 2-1. And I sit there, and what scares me the most, not scares me the most because I've already accepted that the Mets season is done, but you got to sit there and say to yourself almost as a Mets fan, well, if he's going to go 2-1 his last 3 starts, what are they going to go, about 5-15 in their last 20 games? Like, it's just how you look at the Mets. Like, you're just like, it's just rough being a Met fan. I know you agree with me on that one.